Sorry guys, going through my calendar just to make sure it's not July 24th, because if it is, I'm staying far away from Carly Shay. Why? Well, we'll talk about that in episode 6. Let's get into it. What's going on, you guys? James here with another real review, and today we're diving right into the iCarly revival, episode number 6. It is streaming now exclusively on Paramount Plus and is directed by Phill, starring Miranda, Cosgrove, Trainor, Nathan Kress, Laci, Mosley, and Jaidyn Triplett, including an old but familiar face that we'll talk about, a complete surprise for me. But if you have been following all of my reviews so far, I am in love with this revival. It is excellently written, acted, and directed. I think it's very effective, and it really allows me to escape for at least 30 minutes every single Thursday. So if you missed out on episode 5's review, it's right at the top of the screen, guys. And hey, before we get into what worked in this episode and what didn't work too well, if it's your first time here, welcome to Real James, where I talk about TV and movies like this all the time, so you're not going to want to miss out. Go ahead and hit the big red button below, subscribe to the channel, tap on that bell, and hit that big thumbs up button if you're a fan of iCarly, and get out in the comments and let me know, did episode 6 make you smile, or were you a little disappointed by this week's episode? Alrighty, y'all. So let's get into what episode 6 is all about. The title of the episode is I'm Cursed because, yes, this episode is all about Carly Shay's birthday curse, July 24th, the one day where if you're near her, bad things happen on her birthday. So what did Spencer do? Well, he went ahead and booked a trip to Squamish Falls, I believe it's called, and everyone else seems to be on it except for Carly Shay, until she gets a surprise visit from her old junior high school principal. That's right, Principal Franklin from Ridgeway Junior High is back, y'all, and Tim Russ's cameo was absolutely hilarious. I love the fact that, first of all, this show is paying homage to the old series while still keeping things very fresh. Everything felt so effortlessly in this scene. He had me on the ground laughing, and I loved how it progressed the story for this episode much further ahead, giving 2 letters both to Freddie and to Carly, and basically it was a project from when they were younger 15 years ago, writing to them, I guess, 15 years in the future. Carly's was funny, included a thing about a hover car, and then you had Freddie who, oh boy, well, Freddie basically thought of everything that he didn't do in his 20s, and now he wants to recapture his youth. So what does he do? Turns into a skater. More on that later. But man, I do love the central theme to this episode, which is Carly addressing her anxiety. And it can go a little bit deeper, but on the surface, this is more so about her overcoming her fear of past experiences that were not so favorable on her birthday. Now that's the A plot, but the B plot involves Laci Mosley, who plays Harper, and this fashion designer photographer named Alex Xavier. Yes, Alex Xavier is his name. Listen, I didn't make it up. But I'm a big fan of how Harper and him met over at Skybucks, and Laci Mosley in this scene is just excellent. Her comedic timing is great, and her line delivery is just so darn sharp. I'm gonna be honest, I do think Laci Mosley is the MVP so far of this revival. I love Miranda Cosgrove and I love Trainor and Nathan Kress, but I think Laci Mosley being the newest addition to the cast alongside Jaidyn Triplett, man, she's just excellent. And of course, Harper continues to run into Alex Xavier as the episode goes on, but before that, we start to learn that Carly might be willing to work out of her comfort zone and dip her feet into the hypothetical birthday pool. And of course, Spencer takes an inch and stretches it out to a mile and says, you know what, let's do a surprise party instead. And the only reason Harper agrees is because Alex Xavier is going to come back to the party, and she'll hopefully build that connection with someone who she probably idolizes in the show. And speaking of Spencer, guys, I do think that Trainor gets more funny solo moments this episode compared to last week and the episode before. Yes, he's always going to be around, but he was definitely in a very supporting role last week compared to this week, where he is literally orchestrating this party. He's very involved in the second half of this episode as well, and I do think that he really chews up every scene. He's great, and I think he's just continuing to be consistent throughout this revival. But once we get to that surprise party, guys, yes, Carly is incredibly shocked and upset, but she grows to enjoy the idea of being surrounded by loved ones on her birthday. And of course, Spencer being Spencer says, hey little sis, let me try to help you overcome those fears by giving you a psychic reading with someone who he paid to falsify a sort of reading to allow her to break out of that birthday curse. Now this scene goes from funny to morbid really quickly, because after Carly is free of her curse, this little psychic guy, well, he dies. Yeah, I'm not kidding, he has a brain aneurysm, and those are very scary, first of all, but the episode almost forgets how scary it is sometimes, and I thought, okay, I thought they'd maybe dive into that a little bit deeper, but I guess not. You know, it's still iCarly, so they're not going to really focus on that too much. But the dude is dead. So rest in peace to our dog Zagnat, who really did the most to help Carly break out of her birthday curse, which is still a curse, especially if he's dead. And then we get Freddie's moment to shine, or to fall flat on his face, literally. I mean, he comes in with this skater look and a few of his friends, I think it's 2 or 3 of his friends, and he is trying to really reclaim his youth. He's got a, is it like a lizard on his arm? And he's got a backwards hat, he's got the long hair, he's looking like a skater dude, but he is not doing a good job at recapturing his youth. Instead, he's embarrassing himself, especially after he tries to crowd surf, and that does not go well at all. It's still hilarious, it makes for some really, really funny jokes, and I do think that this show as a whole, I should say this episode as a whole, complements the show itself. Now, is it a strong episode? Is it the strongest episode so far? No. And I do think that there are moments where I thought maybe they could have advanced the story of this episode a little bit further ahead. And even when we get to the end, guys, I wasn't completely satisfied. Unfortunately, I don't think they ended it on the brightest note. I mean, I do love that Millicent has this selfie moment where she talks about going into Congress, and then we see Freddie with his neck brace, but that is supposed to be more of like a mid or like post-credit scene in a way. I didn't think that they ended Carly's story here very well. I almost wanted to see her resolve or overcome that fear. It would have felt more complete, but we didn't get that. Still a good episode, and I still feel like this made me laugh more often than not. And when it comes to the standouts in this episode, guys, it really goes to Laci Mosley, Jerry Trainor, and Miranda Cosgrove. A quick note about Miranda Cosgrove's acting: even though she's playing this awkward woman who is making really good jokes and she's just trying to live her best life, of course, I do think that the past trauma of Carly Shay and her birthday curse allowed for Miranda Cosgrove to act a little bit more, if that makes sense. So I enjoyed that. I could definitely tell that from this episode. And episode 6 for me, even though it's not at the top, it's still even stronger than the weakest episode so far this series. And hey, if you ask me, I kind of want a bubble wrap tuxedo or dress from Alexavier and Murfin. Murfin was the name that was given to Harper because she couldn't really speak. She was freezing up when speaking to Alexavier. And I think we'll start to see some running jokes from this episode find its way throughout the rest of the series, because hey, episode 6 has potential to get better as it kind of lingers on the minds of fans. For me, as the episode went on, it definitely got better. So hey, episode 6 is still solid. I'd give it a B if I had to grade it. But yes, I enjoyed this week's episode of iCarly. But hey, I want to know which episode so far is your favorite. And hey, if you haven't already, go ahead and hit the big red button below, subscribe to the channel, and tap on that bell so you'll be the first one in the comments next Thursday when we go ahead and review and recap iCarly episode 7. Y'all, I love you. Thanks for hitting that thumbs up button as always and helping these videos get seen by so many people. I mean, geez, it is such a blessing to be recognized by some of the cast and crew on this show. Alrighty, y'all. Again, thank you so much for watching, and I'll catch you at the next screening. And hopefully, well, I don't try to reclaim my youth like Freddie did. Yeah, I'm not falling flat on my face or getting on a longboard anytime soon.